Good morning, everybody. We have about 15 minutes for class this morning, so we'll just go ahead and jump in. I was told we're actually going to do the prayers for other after we're done. So we'll wrap up class, we'll do our group prayer, and then we go upstairs to the children's play, is my understanding. And I think we're supposed to be done about 10, so we just have roughly 13 minutes now, I guess. So for those who haven't been here, we've been going through and looking at things around the return of the Lord Jesus Christ. And we've been looking at Matthew chapter 25, and we've been spending some time in these different parables where Jesus teaches us some different things about his return. And last week we went through the parable of the 10 virgins. This week we're going to look at the parable of the talents, and that's going to be Matthew chapter 25. Matthew chapter 25. We're going to start in verse 13, or 14 rather. And we'll go to verse 30. So we can either just read that around 2 verses each, or if somebody wants to, we'll just do 2 verses each and kind of just 14 to 30. And David, would you mind starting us? And we kind of just wind around 14, and then we can end at 30.
For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. Unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his ability, and straightway took his journey.
Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. And likewise, who had received 2 gained 2 more also.
But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time,
and he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here, I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master.
And he also who had the 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master.
He also who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours.
But his master answered, Evil and lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I didn't sow, gather where I didn't scatter. Then you should have deposited my money with the bankers, and on my return, I would have received my money back with interest.
So take the bag of gold from him, give it to one who has 10 of them. Whoever has, even more, they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them.
And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory.
And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth the sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left.
Okay, so we can finish there. So we've been looking at these different parables, and they each kind of give us a little different perspective. And this is actually the second one where we have a master who goes away. We looked at another one where a master leaves his servants in charge of his household, and then he comes back suddenly and he expects, he sees how things are going. And this one's a little bit similar to that. It's a master who goes away, and he says he entrusts them with talents. Does anyone know what a talent is in the context of this passage?
Are we saying how much money or just money?
Yeah, it's money, right? It's a form of currency. And you may not know, based on one commentary I read, it said a talent was equivalent to 6,000 denarii. And a denarii was the daily wage of a soldier and laborer. So basically, as I take away, they actually gave him quite a lot of money to entrust. And he goes away, and he comes back later and kind of does a reckoning of where things are. And again, kind of similar to what we had in the other account where this guy goes away, he leaves his servants in charge, and he comes back, and there's how were things handled when he was gone? As we talked about before, you know, in that time and place, when you were entrusted with something by someone who went away, there wasn't really any monitoring that went on, right? It's not like today when you're like, if you have an investment fund that somebody's watching for you, and every day you can go in there and say, okay, stock market's not doing so good today, or it's doing, you know, you can kind of daily watch how things are going. I guess even then people find ways to pilfer things, but then, you know, just you left things and they were just completely on their own, right? They didn't have any oversight, and it was kind of on them. And so that's what's going on here. He's coming back. They've been entrusted with these talents, and there's good and faithful servants, and there's a wicked and slothful one. And based on how they use these talents, there were two different outcomes in their lives. So I guess just starting off, in verse 14, when it says, what does he entrust them with? His goods, right? I think that's an important concept right away, is that these servants, they have, it's something that they have from their master, right? It's not like, what did they do with their own stuff? It's their master gave them something, and this was something they were entrusted with, and they were supposed to use it. And I think, you know, just again, trying to think about the application for ourselves, you know, I think the first thing that stands out is what they had was given to them. And I think that that's an important perspective for us as well, as we look at, you know, whatever we have in our lives, whether it's our job, our money, our lives themselves, you know, if we see it properly, we see it as a gift, right? And that, I think, is the first perspective I think we should take away from this, is this is a reminder for us that we've been given something. This isn't like, you know, everything I have is mine. It's a gift. And there's an expectation that with this gift, I'm supposed to be a responsible steward for that. So I think that that's kind of the first takeaway. And you think in the Bible, what is the biblical word for gift? Is anybody? Charity. Yeah, I mean, what do we usually translate it as? It's grace, right? Yeah, sorry, it's a little ambiguous. Yeah, but the word grace, if you look at the root word, it means like favor or gift. It's like charis or something like that in Greek. And I think that that's kind of the same concept here. It's the idea of grace. You're given something, and there's an expectation that you use it. And think about the Apostle Paul. If you look at 1 Corinthians chapter 15 real quickly, just kind of keep a finger here. We'll flip back there. But it's just interesting on his perspective. Oh, I'm sorry. It's 1 Corinthians 15. And we're going to look at verse 10. If someone could read verse 10 for us. And maybe verses 9 and 10 for a little bit of context. I don't know where we left off, but 1 Corinthians 15, 9 and 10.
For I am the least of the apostles, that am not meet to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God, I am what I am. His grace which was bestowed upon me was not in vain, but I labored more abundantly than they all. God.
So you kind of see Paul's perspective on his own life as a apostle. He doesn't say it was, you know, my wisdom, or it was like, it's the grace that God gave me. It's something that God gave me, and I took that and I ran with it. It wasn't my own. And so again, I think that that's one of the key takeaways from this parable. It's just understanding, you know, everything we have is a gift, and it's really a matter of how are we using that gift. And so then we come back to, as we go on, we see that there's kind of an outcome. Each person is given this talent, and when they come back, some of them have gained more talents and some have gained less, but of course, then the final guy doesn't gain any. Let's talk on the positive side first. Let's talk about those that have gained some. When we talk about people who come back with more talents, any thought on what this kind of means for us? I see a hand, Joe.
I always think this is very interesting because when you walk away from it, you think that the master came to them and asked for it. It's the opposite. All of them who have done well go to the master and say, look, you find I've got 10. They're excited about what they've done, and they're happy about what they've done, and there isn't a reckoning. Everybody thinks,
Leah?
Yeah, it reminds me of when the apostles were sent out 2 by 2, and they came back and they said, Lord, even the demons are subject to us. And so I would tell Satan is lightning fall from heaven. You know, I mean, they were so excited, they were so joyful, and if we're serving the master to our fullest, we are joyful. We have the fruits of the Spirit.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know, and just kind of thinking about some biblical parallels here. I kind of think about the guy that the sower back in Matthew chapter 13, kind of a similar concept. Keep a finger there and look at Matthew chapter 13 and verse 8. And of course, we know this, he sows on these different types of soils, but on the good soil, it says in verse 8, other seeds fell on good soil, and some produced grain, some 100-fold, some 60, and some 30. And so again, there's that idea of seed that's being planted, that's producing. It's all different amounts, but the key is it's fruitful. It's not just, you know, like the other types of seeds that just nothing comes of them. In fact, you know, there are some seeds where something grows up, but there's no grain produced. It just says they were choked by the thorns around them. So there's this plant that has, you know, fruit, and there's those that grow, but nothing comes out of it. And it kind of makes me think about the guy with the talent who just buried it. It's like he still got the talent, he just didn't do anything with it. And it's like that plant that grew there, but just didn't produce any fruit. And kind of a similar idea there. So yeah, and you know, again, you kind of think about when Jesus comes back, and you know, I think we see Jesus as the master here. What are the when it talks about them giving and you know, coming with more talents? What is Jesus looking for? Maybe in a more literal sense, I guess. We talk about the talents hypothetically, but what kind of things is Jesus looking for when he comes back? What is the produce? Yeah.
I believe he's looking for more people that you invited into his kingdom who accepted the offer, and who also want to be one of his sheep. You know, just kind of multiplying yourself, as it were, multiplying what was invested in you.
Absolutely. Yeah, Casey.
I think maybe you know, we're looking for exactly, what's a talent? What's this bag of gold? And I think the answer is more than that. On the one hand, talent could very naturally, conveniently translate into talent in English. You're given the abilities, maybe. Could be opportunities. I mean, you're not going to develop 5 more talents on your own. You might, if you take advantage of an opportunity, find still more opportunities. On the other hand, what Jesus wants back is, I agree with Leah, but I think it could also be more than that. An openness, an understanding, faithfulness, a love, and appreciation for all that God and Jesus are doing for us. I just think it's a little bit more all-encompassing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to say that, you know, a talent is the same thing going back as it is coming to us.
Jason, sorry.
In the proverb, it says, with all you're getting, get understanding. Right? So there's a pursuit of something, and making sure that you find ways to grab things that are important. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 5, he puts it in this way: this very reason you must make every effort to supplement your faith with moral character, your moral character with knowledge, knowledge with self-control, your self-control with endurance, endurance with good godliness, and your godliness with brotherly kindness, and your brotherly kindness with love. So if we're to apply this in a way that is a talent, let's say my talent is self-control, right? But I need to add to that these other things. I need to add more talents, not just to have the one, but to continually improve it, make it better. It's all I'm getting to get knowledge, to get this.
Actually, I think I've given the eye back. Are we? 2 more minutes. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think that all these answers are all great and wonderful and applicable. And I think that, too, it all kind of goes together in that, you know, when you do, in other words, the thing that motivates us the most to become all these things is love, right? And you have to have an object to love. You know, you kind of just don't love just because you love or whatever. You have an object to love, someone you want to do something with, right, or for. And for God, it's us. You know, for us, it's for our neighbor. You know, that we want to share all the wonderful things that God has given us. But it does force us also to have characters and practices that are loving, that would attract people to God, and that would make us look like representatives of God. Of course, to become all this, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I see Tim over there.
Yeah, it's real quick. All of this applies, I think, what we're discussing, but the last fellow there, the one Jesus did mention going to the bank, which gives it a monetary, idea. Talking about it, but all these other lessons. I think a talent is also a weight. You know, we're given different weights in life. And anyway, so the bank mentioned, sure, throws it in and said, well, it might be money.
John?
I personally see atmosphere to when they went to go into the land, were told by Joshua to give opportunity. And they saw nothing but good. They just had, and the rest saw need and felt overwhelmed. And I see it's
Mr. Gibb?
Yeah, I think I'd like to make a couple of comments. First off, that they were given these talents according to their abilities. And I think that's an important consideration. They weren't in competition with one another. And when we consider what Jesus had, it wasn't material wealth, in anywhere he lay his head. But he did give his disciples the good news, with something without money, without price. And I think perhaps a primary application was to go out and preach the gospel. That's the great mission that they have been given. And it's 1 Corinthians 3, where their work is going to be tried, and then they'll see what sort of fruits their work effective. But I think sometimes we tend to sort of paint